Back in the late 80s, early 90s, the Satanism deal was running rampant. What it boils down to, if you're messing with that kind of thing, whether you're dabbling or not, you're still messing with it.
There have been a series of criminal acts reported around the country. And the source of all this is the apparent practice of Satanism.
Across this country and Canada, satanic graffiti is turning up on public buildings and abandoned buildings.
And that's sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Highly appealing to teenagers in search of power and identity.
Coming into the 80s, and particularly through the late 80s, there's this time that we now refer to as the Satanic Panic. And it began, with these small little incidents where people, older people, adults, started bringing back memories in therapy of being abused ritually and having like all this Satanist stuff going on.
I
like
didn't
babies.
know that. That's where it started?
That's how it started. And so it kind of took a foothold in the therapy community. And from there, it kind of spread to law enforcement, who are now on the lookout for this supposed satanic ritual abuse.
And I know Lieutenant Lowe said they had satanic panic training.
Yeah.
What to look for, here are the signs, here are the words they use, and so it became a big thing.
Of course, when we get to Shane and Sally's kind of teenage, high school years, it's tied a lot more to a lot of more typical things people always think badly about teens. They're into this rock and roll and sex and drugs and so much of the heavy metal music of the time. They kind of embraced that kind of imagery, and so the teens did too. So The Lost Boys, was a movie at the time. It came out that summer before Shane and Sally went missing. It was about a group of teenagers in Santa Cruz, California, that were essentially vampires, and they would roam the night, sucking the blood of tourists and partying teens. And I loved it when it came out. I thought it was so great.
Kiefer Sutherland, yeah.
It's easy to see how, just like we were, a lot of teens would latch onto this movie. Yeah, so Shane was really inspired by The Lost Boys. As we see in episode 2, we get that first look of him on a home movie, and the first sound that we hear of his voice. And we also see that he's got the blonde kind of mullet. He used to have brown, dark hair, and he went and got that haircut and started wearing black. And so he obviously was a big fan of Kiefer Sutherland from the movie.
Hi, Jess, how you doing?
Hi, 20 years from now, you can come back and look at this.
Yep, it's me and Mom at a party.
You'll have to come up and see it on my television.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring my kids, maybe.
Yeah.
See, look here, that's what I got with blonde hair.
Sally and her friends, according to all the reports, and some that we've been able to talk to, they were messing around with Ouija boards.
Yeah, I spoke to a guy who was at the scene Painted in Unsolved Mysteries, where they hold a seance and they do the Ouija board, and Sally supposedly goes into a trance and her friend gets upset and leaves. And the guy I talked to said, yeah, I was at that exact place and we were just messing around.
Yeah, so it's hard to know
right.
what they were really doing and how serious it was.
It's funny, though, when the police interview all these teens, they all name different people that are in it.
But
sometimes.
They do call it a cult.
Yeah, they do. And Sally was definitely involved in it. We have numerous sources saying she was the one primarily into this and didn't want to be involved with it anymore. We hear that from multiple people. And so you get a sense, well, yeah, it was real. It was happening, and there was this satanic stuff going on. But then it becomes kind of weighing it, well, how much was it just a bunch of criminals who were robbing people and dealing drugs, and the Satan stuff was just like a side gig.
She definitely felt like she was in over her head. And by all accounts, it seems like they were pretty dangerous.
She said, if you don't hear from us in a couple of months, then we're dead.
You get this sense that she wasn't afraid because of the satanic element necessarily, just that these were some bad dudes. A member of this cult group supposedly gives Sally a gun, says it's been used in a murder robbery. She and Shane have the gun. They're like, what do we do with it? So they called the sheriff's department and turned it in.
And then, of course, the big question is, did they get hurt because they turned that gun in?
Yeah.
And they have betrayed someone in this group. So that's a big part of the story.
Right.
My initial response is always that Satanic, that's kind of sensationalized. I'm not really buying that. I kind of think now that it does have a pretty significant role because of all the players involved in it. Now, I'm not saying it was a part of a Satanic ritual, but I think they were involved in behavior consistent with that type of lifestyle. And that pattern of behavior, more than anything, is what led to the deaths of Shane and Sally.